Have you noticed that being around people feels heavier than it used to? You can't explain it at first. Nothing dramatic happened, no single moment you can point to. But somewhere between last year and now, something shifted. And the shift was quiet enough that you almost missed it. Suddenly, interacting with people begins to demand an effort that didn't exist before. Conversations that once seemed natural start to sound repetitive. Certain laughs seem slightly forced. Small acts of kindness begin to reveal something behind them: expectation, self-interest, calculation. And the most curious thing is that nobody notices the change, only you. That automatic sympathy you felt for people has simply disappeared. The same complaints, the same performances, the same people saying the same things in slightly different rooms. You sit across from someone you've known for years and realize with a cold clarity you weren't looking for that you have heard everything they are about to say before. Not because they're boring, because they are completely, utterly predictable, because they have not had a single genuinely new thought in longer than either of you would be comfortable admitting. Certain laughs start to sound hollow. You notice the half-second delay, the moment where someone checks whether laughing is the socially correct response before they commit to it. The compliment that lands just before a request, the generosity that somehow always has an audience. And the strangest, most isolating part of all this? Nobody else seems to notice. Everyone around you continues as if nothing has changed. The conversations keep happening, the laughs keep getting laughed, the kindness keeps getting performed. And you were standing in the middle of it, watching the machinery operate in plain sight, wondering how you ever mistook it for something real, and wondering with a quiet dread whether something is wrong with you for seeing it. Nothing is wrong with you. You just started paying attention. It usually begins with small things. A colleague who praises you loudly in front of others and quietly undermines your work when you're not in the room. Not maliciously, almost automatically. The way someone checks their reflection as they pass a mirror. Status management so habitual they don't even register doing it. A friend who goes completely silent when your life gets heavy. Doesn't check in, doesn't show up, disappears into their own comfort with an ease that tells you everything about where you actually rank in their private accounting, and then reappears, warm, generous, full of energy, the moment they need something. And here's the part that really gets you. They don't feel the inconsistency. In the story they tell about themselves, they're a good friend. The gap doesn't exist in their version of events. Conversations that seem friendly on the surface slowly reveal their real structure. Nobody is actually curious about anyone else. Everyone is managing how they're being perceived. The exchange that looks like connection is really just two people using each other as mirrors, checking whether the reflection they're getting back is flattering enough. Most people are not talking to understand each other. They're talking to position themselves. At first, you tell yourself you're overthinking. You apply generous interpretations. You extend benefit of the doubt until benefit of the doubt starts feeling like a form of lying to yourself. But the longer you watch, the more the same pattern repeats, the same mechanics, the same unconscious choreography. And eventually, a realization settles into your chest like something heavy and permanent. Most of human interaction runs on self-interest, not affection. And once that realization arrives, it does not leave. The philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer spent most of his life furious about this, not because he was a miserable person, though he was, but because he believed the fury was the only honest response to what he'd seen. He said selfishness is not a flaw in human beings. It is not the exception, the deviation, the sign that someone needs to grow. It is the engine. Every human being, at the root of every action, is primarily serving the interests of their own will, their survival, their comfort, their status, their continuation. Sympathy, when it appears at all, is usually just self-interest wearing a more presentable coat. You help the drowning person because their drowning disturbs your peace. You are kind to the grieving because their grief makes you briefly, uncomfortably aware of your own mortality, and you want to resolve that discomfort quickly. He wasn't trying to make you miserable, he was trying to stop you from being surprised. Because it's not the observation that destroys people, it's the gap between what they expected and what they found. Close that gap honestly, not bitterly, not defensively, but honestly, and you might arrive somewhere more solid than cynicism. You might arrive at clarity. Cioran went further. For him, the problem wasn't just that people are self-interested. The problem is that they don't know it. They believe, genuinely, completely, with the full conviction of someone who has never examined themselves, the story they're telling about their goodness. The generous friend who disappears, the empathetic colleague who undermines you, the devoted believer who uses faith as a tool of social control. They are not lying to you, they are lying to themselves, which is so much worse, because at least a liar knows there's a truth being hidden. And Ortega and Gasset adds the final layer. Most people have no real inner life to examine, even if they wanted to. The mass man, his term, lives entirely in borrowed thoughts, inherited opinions, collective reflexes. He has never once sat alone with himself in genuine silence and asked, what do I actually believe and why? He absorbs the consensus of whoever is nearest and calls it his worldview. He repeats the lines he was given and calls it his personality. When these three observations meet in a single mind at 3 in the morning, the question that surfaces is not, why did people disappoint me? The question is, why did I ever believe the version I believed in? Here's the brutal truth that nobody says out loud at the social autopsy. The warmth you felt for people was real, it was genuine, but it was not entirely about them. You were seeing what you needed them to be. You were extending your own generosity outward and watching it reflected back from their surface performance. You were, in part, in love with your own projection of humanity, and they were, unconsciously, automatically, performing for an audience that believed in them, which is the easiest audience in the world to perform for. When your belief shifted, the performance had nothing to amplify anymore, and what was left underneath wasn't monstrousness. It was just the ordinary mechanics of people who have never once seriously questioned their own motives, operating in the default mode of unconscious self-interest. Not evil, mechanical. And this is where most people go wrong after the shift. They turn the observation into a weapon, either against the people they've seen through or against themselves for being naive enough to have believed. They become cold, they become arch and ironic and prematurely knowing. They wear the disenchantment like a badge, as if the ability to see through people is the same as being above them. It isn't. The person who sees the machinery and responds with contempt has just replaced one unconscious pattern with another. They are still being run, just by cynicism instead of naivety. The difference between cynicism and clarity is this. Cynicism uses the observation to justify withdrawal. Clarity uses it to recalibrate. Now here's the part that connects to something even deeper, something most people in your position have also felt but have been even more careful never to say out loud. Because the social disenchantment and the religious one are not separate wounds, they are the same wound opened in 2 different places. There's a person reading this, you know who you are, who has sat in a church or a mosque or a meditation retreat or a self-help seminar, surrounded by people who appeared to be receiving something, genuinely moved, genuinely transformed. And you felt, in the exact center of your chest, while performing every gesture correctly, nothing. Not doubt. Doubt would have been something to work with. Nothing. The music starts, and you stand because everyone stands. You close your eyes because that is what you do with this kind of music. You raise your hand slightly, and somewhere inside the performance you hope, genuinely, with the full weight of what you need, that this time something real will happen. Something that fills the specific shape of silence you carry home every Sunday. It doesn't. And you have learned through years of practice not to say that out loud, because saying it makes you the problem. Your faith is weak. You need more community, more prayer, more of the exact thing that has never once worked, prescribed in higher doses by people who have a structural interest in you continuing to need it. Here's the thing no preacher will say from a pulpit. Most people in religious spaces are not seeking God. They are seeking relief from the unbearable weight of being themselves. And the institution knows this, not consciously, not conspiratorially, but structurally. It has been refined over centuries to serve that specific hunger. It takes the deepest wound you carry, the terror of being finite, alone, mortal, without inherent meaning in a universe that does not explain itself, and it offers a transaction. Believe correctly, attend consistently, perform the rituals, give financially. In exchange, you will not have to face the wound directly. And for a while, the transaction holds. The problem is what happens when it stops working and you are still inside the machine. Because a person who has genuinely resolved their existential terror, who no longer needs the weekly renewal of the transaction, stops filling seats. and seats are what the institution runs on. So the system generates the anxiety it claims to resolve and then offers itself as the only resolution. Pray, fall short, feel shame, pray harder, receive conditional forgiveness, fall short again, feel shame again. This is not a bug, it is the product. In 1945, a farmer digging in the Egyptian desert cracked open a clay jar that found something that had been buried for 1,600 years. Not lost, buried, hidden deliberately by the same institution that told generations of people that faith was the answer, because what was inside that jar said the institution was the problem. The Gospel of Thomas. No miracles, no resurrection narrative, no heaven as a destination you earn after dying correctly, no hell waiting for the insufficient, no priest standing between you and whatever is real, just 114 sayings stripped raw of every institutional layer built around them in 2,000 years. The early church did not bury this because it was nonsense. You don't seal something in clay and leave it in the desert for 16 centuries because it's harmless. You do that to a bomb. And the charge at the center of it is this: the kingdom of the Father is spread out upon the earth, and people do not see it. Not coming, not earned, not waiting behind correct doctrine or sufficient attendance. Already here, right now, in this room, in the worst day of your life, in the specific hollow Tuesday afternoon when you understood, quietly and completely, that you had been performing for a very long time and were not entirely sure who had been doing the performing. Spread across everything, and people do not see it. Not because God is withholding it, not because you haven't prayed correctly or given enough or repented deeply enough, because your perception is broken. Because you were handed a lens designed specifically to make you look somewhere else, somewhere future, somewhere conditional, somewhere controlled by whoever manages the transaction, and you have been looking through it your entire life. The Jesus of Thomas does not heal anyone, not a single miracle across 114 sayings, no storm calmed, no dead raised, not one gesture of divine intervention. This is not a stylistic omission. It is a demolition charge at the base of 2,000 years of institutional Christianity, because miracles train you to look outward. They create a theology of waiting, the expectation that something greater descends from outside to fix what you cannot fix yourself. They cultivate a precise and useful helplessness dressed as faith. You cannot see clearly on your own. You cannot heal yourself. You need the intervention. You need the institution that manages access to the intervention. And once you are trained to wait, you can be managed indefinitely by whoever controls the narrative of when your miracle arrives and why everyone else's has and yours hasn't yet. The Thomas Jesus does not offer this. He does not descend. He does not comfort with the warmth the music was simulating. He arrives without anesthetic and says, "You already know exactly where it hurts. You are going to put the blade there yourself." Seeking leads to trouble, not peace, not the warm belonging of a group that has decided to believe the same things together. Trouble, being shaken at the foundation, being stripped of the framework, being left alone with whatever was underneath it this entire time. Only after surviving the dismantling does anything real become visible. There is no bypass. There has never been a bypass. Everything that claimed to be a bypass was selling you a longer route to the same destination while taking a percentage of your life at every toll. If you bring forth what is within you, what you have will save you. If you do not have it within you, what you do not have within you will kill you. No external rescue, no institution with the missing piece, no ritual that transfers grace from an outside source into a deficient vessel. What is inside you saves you. What is not inside you kills you. This is the most liberating and the most annihilating idea in the history of spiritual thought, and the reason it was buried in a clay jar for 16 centuries is that it makes the institution entirely unnecessary. Liberating, no gatekeeper stands between you and whatever is real. No priest has access to something you can't find without them. No correct doctrine unlocks the door. No amount of attendance purchases the experience. No community membership qualifies you for the perception. Annihilating, if you are still hollow after years of sincere effort, the problem is not the institution. The The problem is that something in you has not done work that cannot be outsourced. And the question every institution protected you from asking, by insisting that the answer was more of them, is, what is that work, and why haven't you done it? If you do not know yourselves, you dwell in poverty, and you are that poverty. The only real hell is not knowing yourself, not fire, not eternal separation. The hell of living your entire life as a character assembled from other people's requirements, your parents' fear, your culture's consensus, your institution's behavioral standards, and never once sitting in genuine silence long enough to ask, who is actually here? This is not therapy. This is not personality typing or attachment theory or any of the other comfortable frameworks that let you study yourself from a safe distance without ever actually threatening the story you've built. This is sitting alone, completely still, watching your own mind with no agenda, and being willing to see what is actually there, not the edited version, not the narrative you maintain for the part of yourself that is always watching, always managing, always ensuring that the story of your own goodness remains intact. Most people last 40 seconds before the mind produces something urgent to do. The discomfort is not philosophical, it is physical. The body has spent decades learning to avoid this specific stillness, because this specific stillness is the only place the machinery becomes visible. And visible machinery is machinery that can no longer run unquestioned. There's a moment that happens to certain people. Not dramatically, usually just a quiet Tuesday. The story stops covering the gap. The performance loses its energy. The institution offers its usual package: community, certainty, belonging, the narrated life where your suffering has purpose, and something in you finally and permanently refuses to reach for it. Religion calls this a crisis of faith. Therapy calls it a breakdown. Thomas calls it finding. The disturbance is not a sign something went wrong. It is the sign that the seeking worked. You found that the story was a story, that the warmth was partially manufactured, that the self you called yourself was a performance you had agreed to sustain. And now, for reasons you cannot fully explain to anyone who hasn't been there, you cannot sustain it anymore. The muscles gave out. And what was underneath was not God, was not the peace that passes understanding, was not the warmth you were promised if you stayed faithful long enough. It was just the floor, the actual texture of your experience, unnarrated, unmanaged, finally honest. And here is what I want to say about that floor. Stay there. Not because suffering is evidence of depth, not because the void is sacred, but because the void is the only location from which you can see the story as a story, from outside it as a constructed thing, as something that was built by specific people with specific interests, not as reality itself. And once you see it that way, not as a concept, not as something you understood intellectually but felt in your body, in the weight of a specific ordinary afternoon, it cannot fully reconstruct itself around you again. You will build new stories. Human consciousness requires them, but they will be stories you chose with open eyes, not stories that chose you in the dark while you were too grateful for the warmth to look at what was generating it. Here's the fully integrated closing section. So here is where this leaves you, standing in the ruins of two illusions simultaneously. The illusion that the people around you are, at their core, what you needed them to be. The illusion that the system you were inside, religious, social, institutional, had the piece of you that was missing. Both are gone. The space they occupied is empty, and everything in you wants to fill it immediately. New community, new framework, new relationship, new explanation, anything that makes the world feel solid again. That desperation to fill it is the most dangerous moment in the entire process, because every structure you rush into from that desperation will be built on the same foundation as the last one. The need to not feel what you're currently feeling. The need to not be alone with what you've seen. And it will fail the same way the last one failed. Not dramatically, not all at once, but quietly, on a Tuesday, when you find yourself performing again and realize you forgot, again, to check who was behind the performance. The observation that people are largely mechanical and unconscious does not mean genuine connection is impossible. It means unconscious connection is. The kind of connection that doesn't evaporate when your usefulness runs out requires two people who are both, to some meaningful degree, awake to their own machinery. who have looked honestly enough at themselves to stop running the standard programs on autopilot, who are capable, at least sometimes, of choosing their behavior rather than simply enacting it. These people exist. They are rare. They are rarely found in the places that promise community most loudly, because the places that promise community most loudly tend to attract people still looking for the thing that will finally fill the gap, which means a room full of people trying to use each other as solutions to problems they haven't examined yet. Finding them requires becoming one yourself first. And the empty space in your chest right now, where the faith was, where the easy warmth was, where the automatic sympathy for humanity lived before you started paying attention, that is not the absence of something real. That is the space cleared for something real to eventually occupy it. In the end, the problem was never people. The problem was treating everyone as if they deserved the same proximity to you, as if openness was a virtue you owed to anyone who showed up, as if having standards for who gets access to your interior life was something to apologize for. It isn't. Discernment is not coldness. It is the thing that makes real connection possible at all. The kingdom is spread out upon the earth and people do not see it. You are standing in it right now. Not because you believe correctly, not because you've earned it, not because you belong to the right institution or have achieved the right level of spiritual development, because you were honest enough to stop pretending. And that, as a text buried in a clay jar in the Egyptian desert has been waiting 16 centuries to tell you, was always the only requirement. Whether you can see it is the only question that has ever mattered. If you made it this far, you already know you're not like most people who consume content online. You're not here for comfort. You're not here to have your existing beliefs reflected back at you with better production quality. You're here because something in you refuses to settle for the surface version of things. That's rare. And this channel exists specifically for that kind of person. If you feel like you belong here, consider becoming a channel member. It's the most direct way to keep this work alive. And it gives you access to exclusive content and real dialogue with people asking the same uncomfortable questions you are. To those already members, you are the reason this exists. Thank you. For those who want to go further, there's an open invitation. Pessimistic philosophy, the lucidity of darkness, an unanesthetized descent into the harshest truths of existence, consciousness, mortality, meaning, the machinery of the self. It is not for everyone. It was never meant to be. The link is in the description. Enter only if you're ready to not come back the same. If you want to support in another way, super thanks goes directly into keeping this going. But honestly, watching, commenting, sharing, if you've done any of those things, you're already part of something that most people will never find. And that matters here.